White billionaires mocked the black CEO. Seconds later, their empire collapsed. Excuse me, this section is for executives only. The words sliced through the jazz and clinking glasses like a quiet blade. Heads turned, conversations froze. Malik Jordan paused at the entrance of the Skyline Grand Ballroom in downtown Chicago. The man blocking his path, an usher in a crisp white jacket, didn't even glance at the embossed invitation Malik held. Behind the usher stood 3 members of the Whitmore family, billionaires who owned half the real estate skyline above Lake Michigan. Their matriarch, Evelyn Whitmore, smiled without warmth. "Security's been a little lax tonight," she said, her diamond bracelet flashing as she gestured toward Malik's tailored navy suit. "These charity galas attract all kinds of guests." Laughter rolled through the small circle of donors like a polite wave. Malik felt it, the familiar burn in his chest, that slow tightening that every black professional knew too well. But his face didn't move. His jaw remained calm, eyes steady, voice even. "I am one of tonight's sponsors," he said quietly. Evelyn's husband, Thomas, tilted his glass, amusement flickering across his pale eyes. "Ah, of course. And which catering company do you represent?" Phones lifted discreetly. The moment was entertainment now. Malik had spent 2 decades building Nova Systems, a tech firm born in a 1-bedroom apartment on the South Side, now worth nearly $2 billion. Tonight he was here to finalize a clean energy partnership that would double the Whitmore Group's market cap. But standing under that golden chandelier, with their laughter echoing off the marble walls, he felt like he was back in high school, being followed around a store because someone thought he didn't belong. He exhaled slowly. "Actually," he said, "I represent the company that's about to power your entire new development." Evelyn's expression didn't change. "Well," she replied smoothly, "then I suppose we're in good hands." Her tone made we sound like a wall he'd never climb. The crowd shifted, sensing tension, but no one intervened. One of the younger donors chuckled into his drink. "Don't take it personally, man. It's just the way this world works." Malik's smile was thin. "Yeah," he murmured. "That's the problem." He walked past the usher and stepped into the center of the ballroom. The string quartet faltered for half a beat before finding its rhythm again. Across the room, a massive digital banner rotated through logos, Whitmore Industries and Nova Systems side by side, glowing in gold. Evelyn noticed. Her laughter stopped. Malik reached the podium just as the master of ceremonies adjusted the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, our next announcement marks a historic collaboration between 2 great companies." "Actually," Malik interrupted, his voice carrying through the hall, smooth as glass but weighted with something that made people lean in, "there's been a change." Evelyn frowned. "What are you doing?" He looked straight at her. "Respect. It's a simple word. Hard to earn, harder to fake. And tonight, this room showed me exactly where it's missing." Gasps fluttered through the crowd. Cameras shifted toward him. Malik slid a small device from his pocket, pressed one button, and the gold banner behind him blinked. The Whitmore logo disappeared, replaced by a simple white line of text. "Partnership terminated. Effective immediately." For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then phones exploded with flashes. Evelyn's son, Daniel, stammered, "You can't do that. We signed preliminary terms." "No signatures were finalized," Malik said calmly, "and Nova Systems doesn't partner with people who mock the hands that build their future." He stepped back from the microphone, handed his glass of water to the MC, and started for the exit. Each step echoed like a drumbeat. Behind him, the sound began, not applause, not laughter, just a low, growing murmur as people realized what had happened. Stockbrokers whispered into phones. Investors' faces drained pale under chandelier light. The Whitmore empire had just lost a 9-figure deal on live broadcast, and their public image was collapsing by the second. Outside, Malik paused at the revolving doors. Snow flurries danced against the night skyline. He looked back once through the glass at the glittering room that had turned to chaos. A voice called from behind, someone from the catering staff. A young black man, maybe 22, holding a tray of empty glasses. "Hey, sir," he said, almost shyly. "That was something." "Thank you." Malik smiled for the first time that evening. Don't thank me, brother. Just remember who you are when they try to make you forget. He stepped out into the cold Chicago night, the city lights glinting off his car window like 1,000 quiet witnesses. Behind him, an empire built on arrogance had already begun to crack. He walked out of that gala in silence, not knowing that just hours later, social media would explode with the name Malik Jordan. But wait, don't go. The next part is where the story flips. The video of that night hit the internet before Malik even got home. Clips from phones, shaky but crystal enough, filled TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn within hours. Black CEO ends billion-dollar deal live on stage. Some called him reckless, most called him real. But that wasn't the story the Whitmores told. By sunrise, their PR team had already spun a statement for every network in Chicago. Unfortunate misunderstanding, miscommunication during a private event. We value diversity and inclusion. The same tired words. Malik watched it all play out from his penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan. He wasn't surprised. The world loved rewriting history when it made powerful people uncomfortable. He turned off the TV and opened his phone. Thousands of messages, friends, employees, strangers. Some just said, "Thank you." Others said, "Finally." But there were also threats. Emails warning him he'd never work with real money again. Posts calling him unprofessional, angry, too sensitive. It was the same coded language black professionals had heard their whole lives, different decade, same meaning. Still, Malik didn't flinch. He'd been underestimated before. What they didn't know was that Nova Systems had been quietly developing a clean energy patent the Whitmores desperately needed. Without his company, their new skyscraper line would stall for years. The next morning, he walked into Nova's downtown office, where the air still buzzed with disbelief. His assistant, Keisha, met him at the elevator, tablet in hand, eyes wide. "You've got CNN, Forbes, and half the internet asking for interviews," she said. "The board's nervous." Malik loosened his tie. "Let them be nervous," he replied. "We didn't do anything wrong." Keisha hesitated. "You sure about that?" "They're saying you embarrassed old money on live TV?" He smiled faintly. "Good. Maybe old money needed a reality check." Across the city, in a marble conference room 50 floors high, Evelyn Whitmore was pacing. Her lawyer spoke softly, too afraid to interrupt. "Mrs. Whitmore, the market's opened down 6%. Investors want reassurance the deal is still on the table." "It's not," she snapped. "That man humiliated us." Her son, Daniel, leaned back, scrolling through his phone. "He's trending #1. You should see the comments people are calling him a hero." Evelyn's hand froze midair. "A hero? For disrespecting us?" Daniel shrugged. "For standing up. It's all over TikTok. People love him." She stared out the window at the skyline she and her husband had helped build. For the first time, the city looked smaller. By noon, Malik was in a board meeting with his executive team. The room was tense, headlines projected onto the wall behind them. "We could have handled it differently," said one director. "You just walked away from 9 figures." Malik leaned forward, palms on the table. "I walked away from people who thought money made them untouchable. You want to know the real risk? Working with folks who think your worth comes with an apology?" The room went quiet. Someone muttered, "Damn right." Keisha exhaled. "So what now?" Malik nodded toward the screen. "Now we control our story." He turned to the marketing head. "Set up a live stream tonight. No script, no PR polish, just truth." At 8 p.m., from Nova's sleek office studio, Malik went live. Over 600,000 people tuned in within minutes. "I've been called arrogant, emotional, even dangerous," he began. "But if dignity looks like arrogance to you, that says more about your mirror than my reflection." He told the truth about what happened in that ballroom, about how often professionalism is used to silence people who just want respect. He never said the Whitmores' names. He didn't have to. Everyone already knew. He ended with a simple line that became the quote of the week. "Partnerships built on disrespect collapse faster than any deal I've ever signed." The next morning, Nova's website crashed from traffic. Universities requested to use his speech in business ethics courses. Stock in Nova rose 12% overnight. Meanwhile, the Whitmore's empire kept bleeding. Investors backed out quietly. Reporters dug up stories about former employees who'd faced the same kind of misunderstandings. By Friday, the once untouchable family was the face of corporate arrogance, while Malik had become a symbol of something bigger, proof that grace under pressure could shatter walls louder than anger ever could. That weekend, he drove to the South Side, to his mother's old house. She'd been a school principal for 30 years, the woman who taught him that calm didn't mean weak. He sat on the porch steps, watching neighborhood kids ride their bikes down the cracked street. His phone buzzed again, another news request. He ignored it. Keisha texted, "You just changed the game." Malik typed back, "No, we just reminded them whose game it really is." Somewhere above the skyline, another headline flickered across a digital billboard. "Respect is the new currency." And for the first time in a long time, the city felt like it was breathing again. The world saw a hero rise. The Whitmores saw an enemy they needed to silence. Stay with me, the next chapter will change everything you think you know about this story. By Monday morning, Chicago looked different. The cold wind off Lake Michigan carried whispers of Malik Jordan's name through every corner of downtown in elevators, coffee lines, morning talk shows. The man who walked away from Billionaires. The CEO who turned humiliation into history. But behind the trending hashtags and applause, Malik sat alone in his glass-walled office, staring at the city that had made and bruised him. His reflection in the window looked calm, but inside, the weight had settled deep. Nova Systems was growing faster than ever, stock up 18%, investors calling non-stop. But every call carried a price. People didn't just want his company, they wanted his story. They wanted him to perform his dignity like a show. Keisha stepped in quietly, tablet under her arm. "You've got CNN at 10, the Chamber of Commerce at noon, and..." She paused. "Evelyn Whitmore's lawyer on line 2, third time this morning." Malik didn't turn. "Let it go to voicemail." "She's not the type to let anything go," Keisha said softly. "Neither are you." He looked up then, eyes tired but steady. "That's the difference. I fight for respect. She fights for reputation." Outside the office, the world was reacting in waves. The black community called him a symbol. Business leaders called him a risk. High schoolers were posting his speech under captions like, "Dignity hits different." That evening, Malik's mother called from Atlanta. Her voice carried both pride and worry. "You standing tall, baby, but don't let that make you hard. Remember, being right don't mean you gotta stay angry." He smiled faintly. "I'm not angry, Ma. I'm clear." But clarity didn't stop the storm. By midweek, the Whitmores fought back the only way they knew: money and media. Evelyn appeared on national television, tears glistening under studio lights. "It was never about race," she said softly. "It was about misunderstanding." Malik watched the clip from his phone, jaw tight. "Misunderstanding," he whispered. "That's their favorite word." The next day, a journalist from the Tribune reached out for a feature piece. "They're calling you the face of modern justice," she said. "But some say you cost hundreds of jobs by canceling that deal." Malik leaned back. Justice always costs something. The question is who's been paying the bill till now. Her recorder clicked off. For a second, there was only silence, the kind that happens when someone hears the truth and doesn't know what to do with it. By Thursday, protest signs appeared outside Whitmore Tower. "Respect black leadership. Power has no color." News vans lined Michigan Avenue. Reporters camped outside Nova's headquarters hoping for a quote. Malik refused all interviews. Instead, he met privately with his leadership team. "We've proven we don't need them," one board member said. "Let's build our own infrastructure. Minority-led, majority-owned." The idea sparked something in him, a new energy, sharper than anger, deeper than pride. "Yeah," he said slowly. "Let's stop asking for seats at their table and build our own damn table." Within hours, the phrase was trending. Hashtag Build Our Own Table flooded social media. Malik's old speeches resurfaced. Young entrepreneurs began tagging him in their startup videos. That night, alone again in his office, Malik opened an old notebook, his first business plan from 2005. The pages were worn, the ink faded, but the last line still glowed under the desk lamp. "Success means proving we belong anywhere." He crossed out the last two words and wrote, "Success means creating where we belong." A knock on the door broke the quiet. Keisha leaned in. "You should see this." She handed him her phone. A clip played Evelyn Whitmore being escorted out of a shareholder meeting as investors shouted questions about diversity and corruption. The very same ballroom where she once laughed at him now filled with chaos. Malik set the phone down slowly. No smile, no gloating. Just silence. Keisha studied him. "You ever gonna talk to her again?" He looked out over the city lights, eyes soft but unyielding. "I already did. She just didn't listen the first time." For a long while they stood there watching snow fall past the window. Below, Chicago moved cars, lights, people, life all spinning in the rhythm of change. Keisha broke the silence. "You realize what you did, right? You didn't just walk away. You turned every no we ever heard into a yes." Malik turned to her. "Nah, I just stopped asking permission." Outside, the wind howled across the lake, carrying his words into the night, a promise, a warning, and a prayer all at once. Somewhere, under that same sky, a new generation of dreamers was watching. And for the first time, they weren't afraid to build their own table. By the end of that month, the storm had reached its breaking point. Chicago's winter sky hung low and gray, and every major network had run a feature about Malik Jordan, the man who said no to $1 billion. But now, the headlines were shifting. The same outlets that praised him last week were asking harder questions. Was it pride or principle? Did Malik Jordan go too far? He could feel the turn coming. Public love was fickle. It always was. Inside Nova's 42nd floor boardroom, Malik stood before his team, the city skyline stretching out behind him. "We're not chasing applause," he said, voice calm, firm. "We're building legacy." Keisha sat across from him, eyes sharp behind her glasses. "Legacy's great," she said, "but the press is twisting everything. They're saying we ruined Whitmore's future, that people lost jobs." Malik nodded slowly. "Let them talk. Truth's patient." What he didn't say out loud was that he could already see the Whitmores cracking under the surface. Rumors were leaking. Internal audits, missing funds, hidden discrimination lawsuits. The family that once laughed in public was now fighting each other behind closed doors. That Friday night, Malik attended the Innovation for Equality Gala, the same kind of luxury event he once avoided. This time, though, his name was on the banner. Keynote speaker, Malik Jordan, CEO of Nova Systems. The ballroom shimmered with gold light, a mirror of the one that started it all. Guests in tuxedos and gowns filled every corner. The energy buzzed, not tension, but expectation. As Malik stepped onto the stage, a few people whispered, phones already lifted to record. He didn't need to silence the room. It happened on its own. "I used to think success was about proving we belong in rooms like this," he began. "Now I know real success is when you can walk away from them and still stand tall." Applause rippled through the hall. He waited, hands resting lightly on the podium. "When I walked away from that deal," he continued, "people said I threw away everything I worked for. But sometimes walking away is the only way to build something better. Because power without respect is just noise." The crowd stood. Cameras flashed. For a few moments, the applause wasn't just for him, it was for every person who'd ever been told to wait their turn. Across town, in a high-rise office that now looked emptier than ever, Evelyn Whitmore watched the broadcast alone. Her son had resigned. Her company's stock was in free fall. The empire she'd fought to preserve through pride was collapsing under its own weight. When the applause ended, Malik left the stage and stepped into the lobby. Reporters swarmed him, shouting questions. "Do you regret walking away? Will you ever work with the Whitmores again?" He smiled lightly. "Regret's a waste of time. I'd rather spend it building." Later that night, Malik returned home. His penthouse was quiet, overlooking the lake like a mirror of the sky. On his kitchen counter sat a letter, no envelope, just thick ivory paper. The handwriting was elegant, old-fashioned. "Mr. Jordan, you taught me something I should have learned years ago. Power isn't what you have, it's what you honor. I won't ask for forgiveness, but I do thank you for clarity. E. Whitmore." He read it twice, then folded it neatly and set it aside. Not as a trophy, just a chapter closed. The next morning, he met Keisha and the leadership team at a construction site on the south side, the future campus of Nova Innovation Center. Concrete foundation poured, scaffolding stretching toward the gray sky. Malik walked the muddy ground in his black boots, hands in his coat pockets. "This is where it starts," he said. "Not downtown, not in their towers. Here." A group of kids from the local high school had gathered behind the fence, watching. Malik turned to them with a grin. "Y'all know what this is?" A boy around 16 called out, "Your new headquarters?" Malik nodded. "Ours," he said. "The future's got room for all of us." Keisha laughed. "You sound like a campaign speech." He shrugged. "Maybe, but it's true." A photographer snapped pictures for Business Weekly as Malik and the kids stood together, the half-built structure behind them. The image would later go viral, a black man in a winter coat, standing tall against the cold, pointing toward the sky while young faces looked up beside him. That night, as Malik drove home along the lakefront, he rolled down the window and let the freezing air hit his face. The city lights reflected on the water like stars caught mid-fall. He whispered to himself, not as a statement, but as a reminder. Power ain't in their hands anymore. It's in ours if we choose to hold it right. And somewhere behind him, in the skyline of Chicago, the old towers still glittered, but the future was already being built on new ground. "Hello, friend, I need your help. The channel's been slowing down, and your one free subscribe can truly keep us going. It costs nothing, but makes a huge difference. Comment where you're watching from so we know our global fam is here. Thank you now, let's jump back into the story. 2 weeks later, the snow melted into gray slush along Michigan Avenue, and Chicago's skyline felt reborn. Billboards that once belonged to Whitmore Industries now carried Nova Systems' sleek black and gold logo, but the victory didn't taste sweet yet. Malik Jordan had learned long ago that power without purpose was just noise, and noise faded fast. That morning, he arrived early at the new Nova Innovation Center construction site. The air smelled like steel and wet cement. Workers in orange vests greeted him with nods of respect. Some of them used to work for the Whitmores before their layoffs. Malik made sure they were the first people he rehired. "Good to see you back, sir," one man said, shaking his hand. "Ain't many bosses do what you did." Malik smiled. "Ain't many men like us building it from scratch either." Keisha arrived a few minutes later, phone in hand, face tense. "You need to see this," she said. She pulled up a live news feed, Evelyn Whitmore walking up courthouse steps, cameras flashing. "Breaking news," the reporter announced. "Former CEO Evelyn Whitmore under investigation for corporate fraud and discriminatory hiring practices." Malik's jaw clenched. Not in satisfaction, in reflection. "They were never going to learn until the mirror cracked," he said quietly. Keisha looked at him. "This doesn't bother you?" "Justice ain't revenge," he replied. "Sometimes it just takes its time." He turned away, watching a crane swing a steel beam into place. The wind carried the sound of hammers and laughter from the crew, a rhythm that felt like progress. That afternoon, he met with city officials to discuss Nova's next project, a tech incubator for underrepresented founders. When Malik pitched the idea, some of the older investors shifted uncomfortably. "You're talking about giving millions to kids with no credit history," one said. Malik leaned forward, voice low but sharp. "I'm talking about giving opportunity to the next generation before someone else steals it." Silence followed. Then the mayor, a black woman who'd watched his rise with pride, smiled, approved. That night, Malik sat in his apartment, alone except for the quiet hum of the city. He opened his laptop and scrolled through emails from students, entrepreneurs, and small business owners across the country, messages that all started the same way. "Because of you, I believed I could." For the first time since the gala, he let himself breathe. Then came an unexpected email, a name he hadn't seen in months. Daniel Whitmore. "Mr. Jordan, I left my family's company last month. What they built was rooted in pride, not people. I'd like to meet, not for business, but to learn how to rebuild the right way." Malik read the message twice before replying with one sentence, "If you're ready to build, bring your hands, not your ego." 2 days later, Daniel showed up at the construction site in jeans and work boots. No cameras, no security. The crew gave him curious looks, but Malik handed him a hard hat without a word. For hours they worked side by side, hauling metal and marking foundation lines. When the sun dipped low over the city, Daniel leaned on a beam, sweat streaking his face. "My mother used to say legacy means keeping what you have," Daniel said quietly. "You've shown me it means giving what you know." Malik nodded. "Then you're finally learning." The two men stood in silence, the wind cutting cold but clean across the open lot. That evening, Keisha joined Malik at the office. "You think people will forgive the Whitmores?" she asked. He shrugged. "That's not my business. My job's to build something worth forgiving." She smiled. "You really think this place changes things?" Malik looked through the floor-to-ceiling windows at the south side skyline streetlights, glowing like constellations. "No," he said, "the people will." A notification pinged on his phone, a news alert showing Nova Systems officially replacing Whitmore Industries as Chicago's top development partner. Underneath the headline was a quote from one of the city council members. "For the first time in decades, progress looks like everyone." Malik turned off his phone. "It's starting," he whispered. Later that night, he stood outside the half-finished building. The city was quiet, just the hum of distant traffic and the scent of cold steel in the air. He ran his hand along one of the support beams and smiled. "From humiliation," he said softly, "to foundation." For once, those words didn't sound like revenge. They sounded like peace. And above the dark skyline, the cranes kept moving, steady and certain, as if even the city itself was bowing toward a new beginning. Malik had turned humiliation into foundation, but what came next would test whether that foundation could hold more than his own success. Don't go. The next part shows what happens when purpose grows bigger than the person who started it. By spring, the city had changed again. The snow was gone, and the glass towers downtown gleamed brighter than ever, but what really shimmered was the ground on the south side, where the Nova Innovation Center was finally taking shape. The media called it a new era of enterprise. But for Malik Jordan, it wasn't about eras or empires anymore. It was about people. Every morning he showed up at the site in jeans and a black hoodie, not a suit. The workers didn't treat him like a celebrity. They treated him like one of them. They laughed with him, argued about basketball, and asked about their kids' scholarships. Malik made sure every paycheck cleared early and every cafeteria meal was free. He didn't just build glass walls, he built trust. One afternoon, a group of college students visited the site. They'd come from Atlanta, Detroit, and Baltimore black engineering majors who'd grown up watching Malik's story online. He gave them a tour himself, pointing out where future labs would stand and where local high schoolers could come learn coding on weekends. "See that open lot over there?" he said, nodding toward a patch of dirt beside the main building. "That's for the community garden. Because you can't grow tech if you don't grow people first." The students laughed, but their eyes shone. One young woman, braids pulled tight under a hard hat, said softly, "You changed the way I see business, sir." Malik smiled. "Nah, you're just seeing what it always should have been." Later that day, Keisha caught up with him in the trailer office. "You got another call from Forbes," she said. "They want a cover story. The man who walked away from $1 billion. He chuckled. "They still chasing that headline? They said it sells." "Then let 'em sell it," he replied. "We're too busy building what comes next." As the sun dipped low, Malik drove out to Lakeshore Drive, where the water stretched like silver glass under the orange sky. He parked his black Tesla by the pier and watched the waves roll in, the same city that once looked down on him now reflected in the water beneath his feet. His phone buzzed a text from Daniel Whitmore. "Center looks incredible. Thanks for letting me be part of this. Proud to finally build instead of just inherit." Malik typed back, "Proud ain't enough. Keep showing up." He set the phone aside and stared at the skyline, remembering that night in the ballroom, the laughter, the cold looks, the sting that had started all this. And he realized something. Anger had built the spark, but purpose had built the fire. A week later, Nova hosted its first Future Builders Summit, a free conference for minority founders across the country. Over 2,000 people showed up: students, creators, small business owners. Malik stood backstage, watching the crowd fill the auditorium, each face lit with anticipation. Keisha stepped beside him, whispering, "Look at this, Malik. They came because you told them they could." He smiled. "Nah, they came because they were ready. I just reminded them of their power." When he walked on stage, the applause hit like a wave. But this time, there were no billionaires, no velvet ropes, just people who believed in possibility. He raised his hand for quiet. "A few months ago," he said, "I was told to leave a room because someone thought I didn't belong. Now look around." He swept his arm across the crowd. "This is what belonging looks like when we build it ourselves." The cheers shook the room. Outside, news drones hovered above the center, broadcasting the moment live. Across the country, barbershops, classrooms, and coffee shops tuned in. For the first time in decades, national TV carried a black business story that wasn't about survival. It was about ownership. After the event, Malik stood in the empty hall, lights dimmed, chairs half-stacked. A janitor, an older man with salt-gray hair, stopped him on the way out. "Son," he said, gripping Malik's hand, "I was there that night, at that gala. Saw what they did. I'm glad you didn't let them take your peace." Malik nodded, emotion flickering behind his calm. "Sometimes peace looks like walking away," he said. The man smiled. "And sometimes it looks like building a home so the next brother never has to." As Malik walked out into the cool night, that line stayed with him. The skyline glittered above him, and somewhere between the steel and glass, he could almost hear the heartbeat of a city that had finally learned something new. Respect can't be bought. It's built brick by brick, hand by hand, name by name. And as the cranes swung over the south side, their metal arms slicing through the night sky, Malik Jordan knew one truth deeper than any deal he'd ever signed. Power doesn't come from sitting at their table. It comes from building your own and inviting everyone to eat. By summer, the Nova Innovation Center finally opened its doors. The air was thick with music, laughter, and the smell of barbecue from food trucks lined up down the block. Families, students, and entrepreneurs filled the courtyard, snapping pictures under the sign that read, "Built by us, for us." Malik Jordan stood on the rooftop terrace, looking down at the crowd. For a long time, he didn't say anything. He just breathed it in, the sound of joy, the hum of new beginnings. Keisha joined him, her curly hair blowing in the warm breeze. "Can you believe this?" she said, smiling. "From getting kicked out of their ballroom to cutting the ribbon on our own." Malik chuckled softly. Yeah, life got a sense of humor. Down below, the first group of young founders stepped onto the stage. They weren't dressed like corporate executives. Hoodies, sneakers, braids, tattoos, people who looked like home. They each took turns pitching ideas. Renewable energy for low-income neighborhoods, a digital marketplace for black-owned brands, a coding program for kids who couldn't afford private schools. Each voice carried the same tone, steady, proud, fearless. Malik turned to Keisha. "This right here," he said, "this is what every no turned into." She nodded. "You know they're gonna write about this for years, right?" He smiled. "Good. Maybe the next kid from the South Side won't have to read about struggle first. Maybe they'll read about possibility." A few minutes later, the crowd started chanting his name. "Malik! Malik!" He hesitated, then walked to the edge of the rooftop, microphone in hand. The cheers quieted just enough for his voice to carry. "I ain't gonna lie," he began, laughter rippling through the crowd. "When this all started, I was angry enough to burn bridges. But what I learned is sometimes you don't need to burn them. You just build a new road." The audience clapped, some raised fists in the air, others holding up phones to record. "Let me tell y'all something," he continued, voice steady, calm but powerful. "They tried to make me feel small in a room built to remind me I didn't belong. But what they forgot is you can't shrink somebody who knows their own worth. You can't erase dignity. You can't buy peace. And you damn sure can't stop a people who decide to build together." The cheers this time were thunderous. He waited, then leaned closer to the mic, his tone softening. This building ain't mine. It's yours. Every worker who lifted a beam, every student who refused to give up, every elder who prayed over us when the world said no. This is proof that what they meant for shame turned into strength. He paused, looking out at hundreds of faces, dark, bright, proud, glowing in the golden light of the setting sun. Let this place remind you, he said quietly, that respect is built, not given. That our power don't come from their approval, it comes from our unity. The crowd rose to its feet. Some were crying. Others just stood in silence, hands over hearts, soaking it in. As the music swelled again, Malik stepped back, letting the moment breathe. The lights from the city skyline reflected off the glass walls behind him, shimmering like stars that had finally decided to come down to earth. Keisha walked up beside him, tears in her eyes. "You did it," she whispered. He shook his head. "We did." And for the first time in a long time, Malik Jordan smiled, not the smile of victory, but of peace. He looked straight into the nearest camera, voice warm and certain. If you believe in stories like this, stories about strength, about grace, about what it really means to rise, hit that subscribe button, because we're not done building yet. The screen faded to black, the last sound a heartbeat over soft piano music, and the words appeared, "Respect is the foundation, unity is the future."